We're riding the old Chevrolets to work today. Gorgeous day though. What is up, guys? We are here in the garage with a completely torn apart Audi, as you can see. So I think in the last clip, there's a video of this thing barely running and it's in a parking lot and dying. And so it died on me. I ended up towing it home and working on it here. And at first I thought it was a cam position sensor because it actually threw a code for intake cam position over advanced. So I was like, okay, well, it must be maybe the sensor's out or maybe something like that. So I checked that sensor, kind of did a quick test on it, seemed okay, but I ended up pulling a couple sensors, the cam position and also the crank position sensor from the junkyard, and I put both those sensors in and no luck. But what could be causing, you know, the engine to not start? So I was kind of doing some reading. I talked to a couple of my technician friends and they told me could be your cam chain tensioner at the back or cam chain adjuster. So if that goes out, then I'm gonna have to check the timing. So I checked the timing and it was actually 2 teeth out. I lined up the crank pulley, realized that this pulley was 2 teeth out. So I basically undid everything, retimed it. Then I did a compression test to see if we have compression on those cylinders. And unfortunately, cylinders 2 and cylinders 4 are giving me 0 compression. And yeah, it looks like the head might be completely pooched and the valves might be bent. So the next step now, I'm not sure. I don't know what to do. I think I'm gonna try and find another head and swap out the head and see if we can get it running again just as is. Of course, my mind went to, you know, different motor swaps or finding a whole nother motor or whatever. But yeah, I think the easiest, quickest thing to do is to do a little head swap, retime everything and see if I can get it running again. Grab some gaskets and whatever parts we need and go from there. On the other hand, there's also the Mark II Jetta VR6 sitting in the at my other garage. So I'm gonna go and take a look at that and see if I can get that running. Come back to this thing and see what the deal is with this. So stay tuned. The Volkswagen Audi saga continues. I don't know why I drive these cars. It's a huge pain. But look at this. So that's what I signed up for. We're gonna tackle this and figure this out. So I forgot to film this part, but when we took everything apart, this is what we found. And as you can see, 2 of the intake valves are very clearly bent. At this point, I still don't know if this was caused by a failed cam chain tensioner or a failed timing belt tensioner. It's been a few months probably since the last clip that you just saw, and we have some goodies ready to go on the Audi. So let me show you what we have here. So we have another fresh 1.8T head, all cleaned up and ready to go. And this head ended up being in really good condition. All it needed was some valve stem seals. And so I took this to the machine shop and had them redo the valve stem seals and kind of just clean it up, get it ready to put on the car and reassemble everything, clean it up. And so now, hopefully we don't run into any issues with this head. So I'm really excited to run this. They did a pretty good job. I hope it's timed right. I do have to kind of double check. There's supposed to be 16 rollers between those 2 timing marks. And I do believe this was the original culprit that caused the engine to fail originally. So this is the cam chain adjuster. That is so that keeps the cams in time with each other. So I think that failed and caused the intake cam to spin independent of this and bend the intake valves on the other engine or the other head. So this one will hopefully be a good reliable replacement. This, I haven't replaced this part. I hope I'm not shooting myself in the foot. I think this is good. They took it apart. They said it's in good condition, so hopefully it is. We also have some goodies. We got a manual tensioner here. So I'm replacing the hydraulic tensioner with the manual tensioner. This is like kind of an OEM replacement one. I was gonna go with the integrated engineering billet fancy deal, but then I ended up just I found this at like a local like World Pack. So I ordered it. It's a local supplier. It's got like German bearings in it, INA. So we'll give that a whirl. We got some Mark II seat bushings here from Amazon. These look like OEM made in China. It's super weird. They look really high quality. Amazon. This is a thermo switch for the VR6. We got our water pump for the 1.8T. We got our head bolts. We got spark plugs that are temperature range colder, because we will be running a new little goodie that I'll show you in a second. And then these are just like nuts or hardware for the valve cover. And then we have bearings for the Mark II. We've got some fresh exhaust stud nuts. Copper, like they kind of like are squished so that they lock in place. We got our exhaust cam gear, and we got some gaskets. I think this one's used, but I'm gonna send it anyways. And then here we have an 034 PCV breather kit that hopefully should help with boost leaks and that kind of thing, or at least it's reducing a bunch of vacuum connections and hoses, so it just simplifies the system and makes it more reliable, and so that'll hopefully make the car run a little bit better. And then we have our intake and exhaust manifold gaskets and our valve cover gasket. So that's that for parts. I'm still waiting on billet aluminum injector cups that are gonna go into the intake manifold, which is chilling under here. And so that PCV kit deletes kind of all this stuff, and the injector cups that are in here are actually all cracked on the inside there. I don't know if you can see that. On all, that one's clear. It's tough to see, but all 4 of these have cracks. So we got to replace that, and we are going to be putting some new injectors in there. So these are the factory stock injectors that run with the KO3 turbo. Now I did have a KO4 on this car that I actually found at Pick and Pull, the junkyard, and it ran good. Like it made a lot of like it felt a lot more powerful for sure. Like you could tell it was, you know, a way better turbo than the one that was in it before, which was this one. This one's been rebuilt by Alamo, so it's I mean, it's got shaft play on it now, but it used to be in better shape. The KO4 though started to burn a lot of oil, so I ended up switching to this turbo, and that kind of solved that issue. And then of course the head ended up somehow grenading itself with the timing or the tensioner there. So now we're going to be putting some new injectors. Oh, sneak peek, we have ourselves a KO4, a Borg Warner. So this is another one. Hopefully this will give us our power back and make the car feel a lot more enjoyable with this turbo for sure. Like it was so much fun. But I didn't even have the injectors. Like I used those factory injectors with the old KO4 and it still worked well. I do need to get software tuning to kind of make it run properly, which shouldn't be a big deal. Here we have Audi TT 225 386cc injectors for the KO4. So we're gonna be, once we get the billet injector cups, that will go into there. Turbo will go on and we'll be laughing, hopefully. This is a box with all the old basically I had 3 different heads. I brought them all to the machine shop and asked Cutter Up Rob, actually, shout out to Cutter Up Rob. He told me to kind of go with the valve stem seal replacement idea because it's kind of the cheapest, easiest way to go instead of doing like a full rebuild. So I do have 2 more heads here. This is the one that was on the car before, so it does have a slightly damaged valve seat and like part of the actual casting. I think it's still usable. There's no valves in it right now. They're all in that box. This one, I do believe is in good enough shape to be reused as well. So that's an option there. I don't know what I'm gonna do with those, but they are there. And then I have the exhaust manifold, just the factory one, to go back on the car. We have this thing here, which is a secondary air injection block-off plate, or this is the block-off plate for the little, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a valve that goes here. It is located right here. So this doohickey goes here, like that. But we're replacing it with a block-off plate and deleting all that junk because it is emissions crap that I don't need. I don't even have a cat on this for SAI to warm up, so I have a test pipe, so we have no need for secondary air injection. Right here, there's a coolant flange that goes here with the coolant temperature sensor. It's actually right here. This goes here, just like that. So I actually have a cast aluminum one coming along with the billet injector cup. So when I get the cast aluminum flange and the billet injector cups, I'll be able to get this part together. It's going to be a lot easier to put the coolant flange on first before dropping this into the car. So I think what I'm going to do is just work on the car, get as much as I can done over there, clean it up, get everything ready. Once that piece comes in, I can slap it on here and then just drop the head straight onto the engine from there. And that should be hopefully the last step needed before kind of dropping the head onto here. So in the meantime, we're going to clean up these piston tops. Two of them have had some valve contact, so there is, you can feel it with your fingertip there. There's like a raised edge where the valve hits. So I kind of need to just sand that down a little bit. And I'm going to use some WD-40. This is a trick I learned from Humble Mechanic, the YouTube channel. He used WD-40 and a brush. Can't quite remember, he had like a scraper tool and stuff. So I'm gonna just kind of use like a wire brush to get at that and clean it up. There is a part where the valve met the cylinder wall, but that is above where the rings ride. I talked to Cutter Up Rob. He said that it should be fine. I don't think it's gonna be an issue. I mean, the head gasket's gonna kind of overhang a little bit there, but I don't think that's gonna matter. It's smooth. I mean, it will make the combustion chamber slightly higher volume by like that much, but I think it should be fine. I also have the water pump and stuff to replace, so we're gonna sort of clean up here, replace the turbo, replace the water pump, replace the PCV setup, which goes here, and this then goes up to the valve cover. And that kit that I showed earlier, the 034 Motorsport kit, replaces this setup and gets rid of this like extra line here. And there's also a check valve, a billet aluminum check valve that will go here, and this will go back to the intake manifold. So yeah, without further ado, let's get this thing cleaned up and hopefully get this thing going. I miss this car a lot. So we got the turbo out. I'm gonna wait until I have that gasket to put the new one back in. And now I'm working on the oil pressure sensor wire. So at some point, this little connector that is for the oil pressure got ripped off. And so now I am re-soldering a new connector on. So that is a tinned wire with some solder on there. And then I have a connector ready to go right here. So I have it ready with the solder on there, and this is the connector. So that will be for the oil pressure, and that will solve our oil pressure sensor reading issues. So now we got that oil pressure sensor wire soldered again so that we have a connection and a reading for our oil pressure, which is obviously very important. So that's soldered together. Now I just got to slide the heat shrinks down and shrink that, slide the little sleeve. There's the heat shrink there, so we'll clean that up. There's another piece of heat shrink down there somewhere. Of course I lost it. I did just put the KO4 turbo in there. Looks really good. It's got a ceramic coated exhaust housing there and some new fresh hardware on the back there as well, and we got a gasket ready to go on. And also this turbo came with some 034 Motorsport vacuum lines. That's good to have, so that's ready to go. And now I'm just gonna clean up. I found like the top of the piston had a little bit of a high spot, so I'm just gonna sand it down a little bit more, and then it's pretty much time to put the head on and start getting that all torqued down and ready. I'm still missing the coolant flange, but I figured that I'm going to just put the head on first, get everything set up, timed, and then when the coolant flange comes in, there's enough room back here to get the coolant flange in, so it shouldn't be an issue. So I'm going to put everything together, do the coolant flange last when it comes in, and also the billet injector cups to go in here. That will be kind of one of the last things. So yeah.